Hello, everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of Jimmy's Jambox. We're here. We're back at it again, and we're going to get on into it. But before we do, as always, please make sure to like, subscribe, push all the buttons, do all the things. You know, I don't know where they are, but you do, and I trust you. And with that being said, here's a quick word from our sponsors. Organic herbs and botanicals, skincare and edibles, wellness for body and mind. The Brothers Apothecary. Fine teas and remedies. Ronald Records. From indie gems to classic hits, discover the heart of local music. With live shows all the time, up close and personal, and regular releases on their in-house label. Ronald Records. Supporting the community, one track at a time. All right, thank you all so much for watching. Again, shout out The Brothers Apothecary, Ronald Records, and Portland Water. Thanks for keeping us hydrated. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get on into it. Here is today's guest.
Hello, I'm Nada Rien.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about, who you are, where you're from, what you do, give us that Tinder profile of your involvement with music.
Tinder profile. My name's Nada Rien. It's been my name for a year or two, maybe a year. When I went by Casey Black, that guy grew up in Nashville, Tennessee. His dad was a hit country songwriter.
Whoa.
And so music was around in the house, the blood. Got a songwriting deal out of high school. I was writing country songs on Music Row with my dad. I failed at that pretty good. So I moved to LA and started making my own stuff and just go to different cities and fail in different ways while making records at the same time. It's kind of my story. Yeah. And here I am in Vancouver, Washington.
Okay. So you
actually at it here.
You actually live in Vancouver?
I do.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do as well. And I guess
nice.
that I usually try to check in with people and ask if they have a musical surrounding and upbringing, and it sounds like you very much do. Would you like to touch on that at all before we get into more about you?
Sure. I mean, my dad was a guy named Charlie Black. He's written, 14, 15 number one country songs.
Oh, damn.
And it's the kind of thing where it's your dad, so you don't you take it for granted. And I think probably the blessing and the curse that my dad gave to me by being my dad was making it look like making a living in the music business was no problem.
Yeah.
Yeah,
which is definitely not all it's cracked up to be or as easy, especially nowadays.
Yeah. He sort of made it look extremely easy to just kind of kill it.
Yeah.
So I'm very grateful for that and also a little resentful,
Fair. But it sounds like, you at least took away the passion for music from him.
Yes. I think it was just, I don't know what it is because I've got kids now and I've got the instruments ready for them.
Yeah.
And I took to it. And once he saw that I took to it, he would bring home his hand-me-down recording stuff and sort of support me in that way. So it was just kind of this natural thing that happened.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing a little bit of that. But getting back to you, before we officially get into what you do in the present day, I do have a couple foundation questions I check with everybody on. This first one, it's one we ask early, it's one we ask often, and it's definitely a crowd favorite. What was the first album you ever bought with your own money?
I think that was Angel Dust, Faith No More.
Okay.
Yeah. Are you familiar?
I am, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What led you to that one?
So I have a big sister, and her presence in the house was usually, you couldn't see her, but you could hear her music sort of coming through.
Yeah.
And that was a big influence on me. And I don't know why it was that specific thing. It was probably something my sister's boyfriend was listening to. But I was also needed some outlet, I suppose, for some anger. Like thinking about it now, I'm like, why was sort of like preteen me wanting to listen to Midlife Crisis and
that's fair, yeah.
Caffeine, you know, like what was going on there? But it was just Mike Patton, the what the hell is he doing with his voice? I don't know. It was wonderful. I still, when I turn it on, I love it. It's fantastic. So I don't really know the answer to that, except that my soul needed it.
Hey, that's a great answer.
Yeah.
Also, that's a good point. The like, why were we so driven to like more of the like angry music and caffeine in those?
Yes.
I'm gonna sit with that one afterward.
Yeah, we could launch studies on this. You know, growing up, you know, religious in the South might have to have something to do with it.
That's
you know that here was a place where it was okay for me to go.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, that's a good point. That'll be for another episode for sure.
Yeah.
And then what was one of the first live shows you ever went to? That was like specifically one you wanted to go to? Because I imagine you were probably around a lot of them.
Yeah, I was. I was. The one that I wanted to go to, I can't really remember what the first one was. I saw Counting Crows and Paula Cole. Paula Cole was opening for Counting Crows at a Tennessee Performing Arts Center in Nashville. But it also could have been like Nine Inch Nails or Smashing Pumpkins.
Okay.
I was, it was like there was a fight between kind of grunge, heavy me and soft Adam Duritz me.
Fair.
You know,
Yeah.
During that time that still goes on in my
I get that for
my
sure.
heart. Yeah.
For the longest time, my answer used to be Ozfest 2005.
Okay.
And then I realized that was the first show I ever went to, but it wasn't the first one I like took myself to. It was actually Motion City Soundtrack and Black Keys and Panic at the Disco.
Okay.
I understand that duality for sure.
Yeah.
And then before we officially get into you in the present day, and you've been very surrounded by it, so that this question might be a little blurred, but do you have a defining moment where you decided you wanted to take music more seriously?
No, it was always, I do, but maybe it's kind of an alternative defining moment. Like, like I said, it kind of came naturally through me and it was what I wanted to do. But something like 8 or 9 years ago, I had some tour mishaps and some sort of music business tragedies, if you will. And this layered on top of, you know, poor self-esteem and all kinds of other crap led me to kind of, I don't know, commit a kind of musical suicide in a sense. I just sort of killed off my musical self. And within the last couple of years, you know, I wasn't doing music for these many years. And then there came a time with, you know, lots of therapy and late night walks, listening to weird music, that it just kind of came back to me one day that I was like, oh, I need to do this.
Yeah.
And the fact that I'm not doing it is probably contributing to how terrible I feel right now.
Gotcha.
So it was within the last sort of 2 years that I really had a moment of like, oh, I need to be doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
But now let's go ahead and get on into you in the present day. And we're going to get a super easy one out of the way.
Okay.
How'd you pick the name?
That's something like it's a little bit like buying angel dust, you know, the record, not the substance.
Yes.
I'm not totally sure. There was just like so as Casey Black, I made 4 or 5 records and then had this sort of, you know, I call it a musical dissociative, you know, moment that lasted years. And when I started coming back to music, there was just this feeling of like, I think that Casey is scared of saying and doing a lot of stuff. I don't, and you know, by then and now, Casey is as a dad. He's like a human with a job, and he's just always been kind of a timid fellow, kind of afraid of saying things. And there was something about when I started thinking about taking on a new name that just felt like liberating in the guts. I really can't explain it, but I was just like, oh, this feels exactly right. And I needed the name to kind of mean nothing. So Nada Rien is obviously nothing twice. So doubling down on nothing, I thought it kind of sounded like a name. And so it was a name that was intended to kind of free me to do whatever the hell I wanted, to sort of break my internal rules, whatever they might be. I also think it's just fun.
Yeah.
I think that, white singer-songwritery men such as myself are missing out when they don't do this. You know, that like the hip-hop dudes have got it nailed down, but you know, it's fun to change your name and play with your identity. And someone made the point to me when I changed mine that usually what white singer-songwriter guys do when they change their name is just change it to like a better white singer-songwriter name. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like Robert Zimmerman goes to Bob Dylan, and I'm like, so you can change your name to anything. And you chose Bob. You know what I'm saying? Not that Bob's a bad name.
No.
But you could be like Scorpion, you know.
Yeah.
You could do whatever you want.
Hell yeah.
So it just felt like fun and flippant, and nobody likes it. I mean, I did a tour, like sort of a return tour, a comeback tour, announced my new name to the people in Ireland where I play a lot. And just like, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? So... anyways,
hey, I mean that's quite the thought process on the name, though. I could do that for sure.
Yeah,
I
think a lot.
When I was in my band, my last big band, I was in Smooth Talk. We had not personas per se,
okay,
but we represented characters in certain stories that we had in some of the songs. So in the songs, we would like enact the parts of them.
Okay.
But like off stage, we didn't introduce ourselves as them. So like on stage, I was a character who went by the name Broderick.
Okay.
But I was just Jimmy in like as soon as I walked off the stage.
Right.
And so it like I could kind of I agree with you that being able to like adopt a bit more of a presence in music is kind of a fun way to go.
Yeah, it is fun.
Yeah.
Just made me laugh. It's kind of like, why not? I also take art like kind of seriously. And if I sense something inside of me is like holding the art back, get out of here.
Yeah.
And maybe that was Casey Black. I don't know. It could be the dumbest thing I've ever done, but I'm sticking with it.
I think as long as it's an intentional decision in the realm of art, you can't really do a lot of wrong. You know what I mean?
It's true.
And I think if your decision to go by that name instead of just your regular name is the thing that opens up the doors for your art, then you're doing it right, because that was what you acknowledged was the thing that was needed.
Yes.
Yeah. But still, really interesting insight, so I appreciate you sharing.
Yeah.
Now let's go ahead and let's talk about your writing process a little bit. And we're going to break it up into chunks, but we're going to start right at the beginning.
Okay.
So when you get inspired, you're ready to make music. What are some of the things you do to get a track started?
I rarely get so it's usually coming from a guitar part or a piano part, some sort of melody that is beautiful or haunting or whatever it is, that sort of resonates in the guts and it won't go away. And then it's historically it's been a long, torturous process lyric wise of what does this melody sound like it wants to be talking about. And that can take weeks, but it's usually like months of repeating the thing and having like words come out in different ways. Oh, that sound works here. A very different process from what Nashville and Music Row do, which is like, here's a title. She's gone and she took my keys. Like, okay, like let's go with that. Everything's driving towards this sort of narrative thing. For me, it's always kind of like it's almost like the melody is this thing that's kind of like the bait that's like drawing out whatever the words need to be, and then it's done. So yeah, there's my boring answer about
that was a great
process.
And then once you get a track finished writing, so it doesn't have to be like recorded and released per se, but once you've gotten it to the point where you can like start learning it, memorizing it, how long does it usually take you to feel comfortable enough to be able to perform it?
That's usually instantly, because of the way that I write. I'm just playing the song a million times, and to get words to come out and stay. And once they do, I've probably played the song 300 times. So it's unless lately I've been trying to write a little bit differently, and that takes a little longer. But usually it's just like, nope, I already know how to play it because I played it.
Yeah, you've been practicing as you've been putting it together. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And now let's go ahead and let's talk about some of your music. So, like you said, you do have stuff under your previous name, but I mostly went for your current work. So you have the most recent album that actually just came out like 2 days ago.
Yes.
In the realm of today. It'll been a couple weeks by the time this comes out.
Right.
But it's very new.
Yes.
And I forgot how you said it already. I'm sorry, but it's called. How do you pronounce the album?
I pronounce it Simulacra.
Gotcha.
But you can pronounce it however you want.
Yeah.
And because it's the word simulacra, it's even cooler if it gets kind of messed up and changed and
what does it
is something different.
mean?
That's a tough one. It's like a very sort of intellectual, like sort of socio-descriptive word about how people begin to leave their actual lived experience and live more in a kind of representational reality. Something like our heads are so stuffed full of, one way of looking at it, about knowledge and maps of the Grand Canyon, that when you go to the Grand Canyon, you're seeing the Grand Canyon, but you're also living in this sort of representation of the Grand Canyon that you brought to it. Everything about the Grand Canyon is there with you.
Yeah.
So I'm probably getting that, 22% wrong. For me, Simulacra is about, I would say like 90% of my music is me looking inside of myself and saying, what the hell is going on in here? And like, what is this?
Yeah.
I've had a lot of, troubles with my mental health, and just a lot of the music is just kind of like, what's going on here? And Simulacra to me, if you're a kind of an overthinky person, that you live in your thoughts, your experience versus living in your actual experience. I'm living in this representation, this sort of screwed up representation of reality versus reality itself.
Gotcha.
If that, there's the sort of the chorus in the title track, Simulacra, says, "Help me, I'm trying to lose my mind." So it's that kind of thing. If I could rip my mind out and just set it on the curb, that would be the coolest thing.
Gotcha.
For me.
Damn, well, I didn't know there was a word for that. So that is
there you go.
Very informative. And I was checking out your album. First of all,
thank you.
It is really good.
Thank you.
It's very obvious that you have had music for some time, you know what I mean? And it just like listening through it, first of all, I thought the duality between the first track and the second track was really interesting. Like, first of all, I thought it was cool that you opened with the title track. I think that's a bold choice in both directions, but you nailed it. It was very full of music. And I thought that was a really cool way to start things off, because it shows that you have all of this attention to different approaches and sounds and elements, But then moving into Demon, which is such a minimal song, it's so almost like decomposed in its presentation, where it's just like you in a more like bassy voice and the piano. And I think there's like a couple moments of like harmonized vocals and I think some strings. Is there a little bit of strings?
There is a guy named Phil Harris is playing the saw.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. So definitely not strings. Interesting. And then there's one triangle chime at the end.
Yes. And that is it sounds exactly like a triangle. It's like a temple bell that
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Phil was there and he just was like, oh, how about I ring this at the end?
Perfect. But like I said, I thought the shift between those two tracks just really shows how you can acknowledge like the core of music and the presentation that comes into it from both ends. And that was kind of the solidifying fact for me. That was the moment where I was like, oh, this is a must listen, like all the way through. Like each track just kind of brought different versions of those two together. But the setup between those two tracks was just really engaging. That was just something that really stood out to me. Wow. But I also do this bit where I pick out a track that I liked and I talk about it.
Okay.
And I went with, where am I? Oh my God, I wrote so many more notes. And it was tough because, again, the album is really good.
Thank you, man.
I did end up deciding to go with the opening tracks. I mean, I'm already saying it wrong. But
say it however you want, man.
I decided to go with that one because, like I said, I think it represents your ability to present so many layers of music. And it was great. It was wild because I was listening to it and I was like, this feels familiar. Like the sound was just so present and like resonating in my head with like music that just from the start, I almost felt like I could sing along to it, even though I knew nothing of it. And so just as a musical entity is just such a full and complete song that, like I said, everything leading after it is just a following version of that in different forms. But I really liked it. And I think as an opening track, it was really powerful.
Well, thanks very much.
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't heard anybody put it anywhere near that, near like that. So I appreciate your listening with such attention.
But I am curious to know, what are some of your favorite tracks to perform off of it? Or I guess, do you perform all of them?
Yes. But over the time where I was musically dissociated, I kind of taught myself piano. I've always played a little bit. But the things that you hear there on the piano are some of my this is the first time I've recorded myself playing the piano.
Interesting.
And so I've just started doing that, and it's so nice to set the guitar down and play the piano. I'm starting to feel afraid that I might just abandon the guitar. So I'm having a lot of fun playing the piano songs, even though it is also terrifying to do. And I've definitely messed that up a few times. But yeah, I don't know. I guess there's a song called Original Sin. It's very just me and a guitar, really kind of folky. And I don't know why that one's popping into my head. I got no reason to say I like playing it the best, but it's that's the one that's coming to my head right now.
Oh yeah. No, I mean like I said, I imagine you probably enjoy playing most of them to some degree, or you probably wouldn't have written them. I imagine. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And now I guess let's talk about some new music. Are you working on anything at the moment?
Yes, I am. I for some reason didn't, prepare for this question, so I never know what to say about this. But I'm kind of working on 2 EPs simultaneously. Whether or not that's how they will come out, I don't know. One is tentatively titled "Love Songs for the Traumatized." Okay. So kind of again, it's me, so it's sort of like love songs through mental health lenses. Kind of like that. So real chart-topping material. Dancing at the club kind of stuff. And even to push that further from the charts and the clubs, I'm thinking about doing probably a short EP that is, I've got a few songs written. My dad died like 3 years ago, and I find myself wanting to talk about him musically. So I may put out something that's kind of like for him / about him.
Gotcha.
And then after that, I don't know. I've thought about what if I do some other, what if I go back to my Faith No More roots and do something completely different.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Well, definitely looking forward to anything you're looking to put out in the future. I think that it'll, just based off of what I've heard so far, it'll probably be well put together.
Thank you.
For this next one, I want to zoom out. Let's kind of look at music just as a whole. And you can either do this from the view of like new music that's happening currently, if that's what you listen to, or at the very least, music that's new to you that you found recently.
Yeah.
What are some of the things about newer music that you enjoy and you're finding inspiration from at the moment?
I think this is going to sound very silly, but in the last few years, my goal has been to literally attempt to enjoy music and enjoy it more as a singer-songwriter, especially pre and during sort of rough mental health days and the musical I didn't really like music that much.
Yeah.
This is just to sort of out myself. I always needed music to say something. The lyrics needed to, like, my prefrontal cortex was involved in it. You really needed to be like getting there to get here.
Yeah.
And people who'd be like, I like that song because I just like the beat. I'd be like, what the hell are you talking about? And I was very judgmental of you don't get it. You don't get it.
Yeah.
And now I'm starting to get that. I'm starting to, secretly I always resented these people and wanted to be them because they were having more fun in their lives. So lately I've been trying to open up to a little bit more fun, a little bit more feeling, and that some of that has me going back to like Faith No More or Rage Against the Machine or Tool, all these people that I loved back then, and also just kind of hitting play on like the Apple Discovery Station and browsing new records. Oh, I really love what's her? She's a Colombian artist, very young. I'm not going to remember her name. I'll have to send it to you. Lita Pimiento, something like that. Have you ever heard of this?
Not offhand.
Anyways, I probably just savaged that. But the point is that I'm literally like watching YouTube and listening to music to say, hey, buddy, you can loosen up. You can feel a beat. You can enjoy the bass line, and that's it. That's fine. So this is kind of a scattered answer that doesn't name really a lot of like specific artists, but
no, that's okay. The point of the question is more to find out just kind of what new experiencing music is like. So that's a really cool answer just in general, because I think it's something that everybody goes through in a way. I think that a lot of people don't realize that sometimes they fall off of music. But what I think is really cool is that you were able to acknowledge the approach to music you had, and now you're like actively trying to approach it differently. Yes. And that I think is a cool way of growth, especially in listening to music, which is something that a lot of people default in. I think that's something that as people get older, they become more complacent, like that when you get hit with it's music's not the way it was back in my day. And like for me personally, I've always tried to avoid that narrative. Like I don't listen to anything that I'm familiar with until I've gone through my entire Discover Weekly and my release radar. Okay. So I'm like always hunting for new music. Wow. And partly because, like what you said, there are so many elements to music, and there's so many parts of approaching it that if you settle into one thing for too long, then you assume that's how it should be. Yeah. So it's cool. It's cool that you're able to break that. I think that's a really healthy approach to have for music in general.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you're describing kind of like musical fascism.
Oh, the way
that it should be. You know, but I love what you're saying about the just the idea of growth, and I wonder how that contributes to you as a person living, going about your daily life. That you've got this like infusion of new sounds and new art in you constantly.
Actually, that's a good point. I never really considered it that way. Like I try to on my drive to work every morning, I pick out an album I've never listened to.
Amazing.
And that always makes my day just a little bit different because I don't know if I'm going to love it or not, but I've already started driving, so I can't change it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Love that.
But that's enough about me getting back into you. And before we move into the next portion, which is all hypothetical questions, this next one's probably the densest question in the interview.
Okay.
So we talked a lot about your experience with music, the actions, the reactions, but at the core, when it is just you and music one-on-one, what does music give back to you?
I think the first kind of answer that comes to mind is that music listens to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I kind of isolate myself, like a lot of people do. I don't. There are things that I don't even know that I'm not telling myself.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And when the right melody or chord progression or just tone or sound comes out, it almost feels like an ear or a hug or something like that is ready to receive something that was previously too deep or too unconscious for me to see or to know. So I'm a therapist in my for work, and there's a thing in therapy called unconditional positive regard, where the person that you're listening to can do no wrong in your eyes, and when you really sit with that and feel that, as I do in therapy sessions, it's amazing. It's beautiful. It sort of changes everything. The person in front of you could be saying the most awful stuff, but there's no judgment. Everything's cool here.
Yeah.
I mean, a G chord is like that, you know, like you can say whatever you want and strum the G, and everything's cool. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Something like that. So I think that would be answer number one. And more sort of externally, I've been thinking about lately, a lot of my best friends are musicians. Because I saw them at a show and stuck my hand out and met them. That's how I got to go to Ireland and play. And then that's how I got to go to Germany. And that's how I got to go record in this studio in LA. And that's how this person in Spain is writing me via Instagram saying, "Hey man, cool new song." That music creates a very loving community that is like worldwide. Yeah. And I would not have expected that, but it's like it's a joyful thing to drive into a small town in Ireland and like know people who are glad to see you. Yeah. Like that's cool. So that's definitely something that music has given back to me.
That might be one of the coolest answers just as a whole. That might be one of my favorite answers I've ever gotten to that question.
I'm just trying to be cool.
No, I mean, thank you for that. That like I said, that is one that I'm really going to have to sit with afterwards, because you said, I think you not only said a lot of things in the way that I think people have tried to say the answer before, but it felt really complete. I like that you gave both the internal version and the external version and kind of explained how all roads kind of lead to the center for them. So thank you for sharing that. I very much enjoyed that.
Yeah, thank you for the question.
Yeah. But now let's go ahead and we're going to move on to some hypothetical questions.
Hypotheticals, okay.
And for these, sky's the limits. The questions are all made up, so the answers are allowed to be as well.
Okay.
But this first one is pretty straightforward.
Okay.
If you could work with any one person, the only requirement is they have to be alive. Who would you want to work with, and how would you want to work with them?
That's tough, man. They have to be alive. who would I want to work with? He's dead. I'm just going to go with what has come up from my guts again, which is Mark Knopfler, is he still around?
Oh, I could not tell you for sure.
Well, if you don't know, then I think he is. He's just a guitar player, and I like his guitar playing, and I would just like him to play guitar with me.
Oh, yeah. Hey, that works.
Yeah.
And then subsequently, who's a more local artist that you're aware of that you haven't gotten to connect with yet, but you would like to?
That's tough. Okay, so I'm not sure I could tell you about a local artist that I haven't. Okay, it's coming to me. This I don't know if this is like not nice to say. I'll put it out there. So my dad, when he was alive, had a great friend named Lang Martine, and they wrote songs together, and a couple songs that were hits. And I've known for a while that Lang's son lives out here in Portland and has done very well for himself in the music scene. And so I don't know if I think he's a singer-songwriter, but I would love to meet the guy because I think that my dad would have liked me to meet the guy.
Yeah.
I think that would make him very happy. But locally in Portland, my head goes straight to two singer-songwriters that I know and love, Anna Tivell and Jeffrey Martin. I always like to go to their shows. I think they're fantastic. So.
Oh, yeah. Well, everybody, you know what to do. At them in the comments. Let's see if we can make that happen. Yeah. And then for this next one, like I said before, sky's the limits, and it's pretty literal in this sense. And you've had a pretty wide travel experience, it sounds like. So this might be an interesting answer. But if you could perform anywhere in the world, and you wouldn't have to worry about crowd access or building stability or power, it was guaranteed the best lineup, guaranteed the best show. And it doesn't have to be a venue. It could be anywhere. Where would you want to perform?
I played at a friend's wedding in Marfa, Texas. Have you ever been down there?
I have not.
It's just straight up West Texas desert.
Gotcha.
And I think it would be fun to set up there at around sunset.
Yeah, I was going to say, probably when it's not peak day.
People come out at noon.
Yeah.
I just, for some reason, I'm, never really lived in the desert, but I'm just drawn to that. Maybe Springsteen's The Ghost of Tom Joad. There's a lot of desert in Texas and that.
Gotcha.
One of my fave records. So that's where I'd go, somewhere near or around Marfa.
Oh, yeah. And then to wrap up the hypothetical questions, if you could get one more album from anybody, they could be alive, they could be dead, they could have not put out an album in 100 years, could have put out an album yesterday. Who would you like an album from?
So they can be alive or dead? Just anybody.
Anybody.
Oh, sheesh. That's a tough one.
I know I ran out of my default answer because Childish Gambino finally dropped his last album, but that was the one I was always going towards.
Yeah. This is like also where I am, coming up against my historical aversion to liking new music and liking music. But let me go with Rage Against the Machine.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would definitely love to know what they would do with music now, for sure.
Yeah.
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 Oh, yeah. All right. And with that being said, we're going to go ahead and start wrapping this up.
Okay.
What can we look forward to between, let's say, now and March?
We hope the continuation of our democracy. But I'm playing here at Ronald Records November 2nd at 4 o'clock, I think. I think I got that right. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I would like to get one of these EPs out before before that time, maybe 2. In the past, I've put out music every 6 years when my horrendously slow writing machine wants to put it out.
Fair.
And I'm attempting to do things differently these days, so I hope to have new music out by then. But
Gotcha. Well, definitely looking forward to that. For this next one, go and look straight at the camera. Tell everybody how they can find you.
you can find me, I'm not going to give you my address, but nadarien.art, nadarien.art is my website.
Oh, yeah. And then any other plugs, any other shout outs, anybody else you'd like to put on while you're on here?
Absolutely not.
Fair. All right. Then with that being said, we've got one last question to go.
Okay.
Before we do, I'm going to steal the camera for just a second.
Okay.
As always, y'all, please make sure to like, subscribe, push all the buttons, do all the things. I don't know where they are, but you do, and I trust you. And one more shout out to the Brothers Apothecary, Ronald Records, and Portland Water. Thanks for keeping us hydrated. With that being said, the final question. And this is entirely up to your interpretation.
Okay.
But what is an album you feel is more on the obscure side? It's a deep cut. It's one not a lot of people would know, but it's one you think everybody should know.
I don't know if these are obscure or not. Living with Ghosts, Patty Griffin's first record, or The Ghost of Tom Joad. I don't know if you can call any Springsteen record obscure.
Yeah, but it's definitely early enough work that there's probably a handful of people that haven't either sat with it or sat with it in long enough
Right.
to feel new.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, yeah. Well, those are great answers.
Thank you.
All right. And with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get up on out of here. Thank you so
Okay.
much for joining us today.
Thanks very much, man.
Yeah. This has been another exciting episode of Jimmy's Jambox. I'm Jimmy.
And I'm Nada Rien.
And we're signing off. Later, y'all.
That's a wrap.
This is not a podcast. This is a show.
Keep jamming.